And the second verse about food we'll look at is when Jesus was tempted when he was hungry after fasting. And he said, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Let's turn that verse again into our prayer. Father, I pray that we will depend on you and on what you tell us to do, what you tell us to be, and that we won't depend on what we have, on what we possess. Amen. And in a few moments, Hughleen will read the passage from Matthew's Gospel of Jesus feeding the 5,000. And it's been great that Hughleen and her family have been able to join us not that long before lockdown happened and just grow into the fellowship of Compton Baptist Church as we've experienced the online fellowship together of lockdown. And it's a real pleasure now to welcome Chris David, who's going to bring our talk today on feeding of the 5,000. Chris is an old friend of Compton Baptist Church. We've really enjoyed his times he spent with us in the past, and I'm sure we will today, and be really challenged by what he has to say. He introduces himself a bit at the beginning of the talk, but I think if you look a little carefully in the room where he's talking, I reckon there's somebody else in that room who he doesn't introduce. See if I'm right or if I'm wrong, but don't get too distracted from it, as the talk is really worth listening to. But thank you, Hughleen, for bringing the reading to us now.
Hello, I'm Yolene. I'll be reading Matthew 14, verses 13 to 21. Jesus feeds the 5,000. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to the solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed those who were ill. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he told the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children.